Welcome to the Media Nerds Podcast. I'm Dan Vadebunker.
And I'm Kenton Larson.
And I apologize for the week off we took. I didn't have a voice last week.
Yeah, you were sick.
I was.
You still seem a little
under
the weather.
Yeah, the cold is hanging on. It's not going away. But like, what happens to me, and this happens every year around this time, my voice just goes. Like
just from wear and tear.
I don't know. It just it's gone. It's like I spend all day talking. We both spend all day talking, right? That's our job, to sit there and talk. And I didn't call in sick. I kind of stuck it through the classes, but I tell you, by the end of the day, I was like I couldn't talk at all. So that's why we didn't do anything last week. Also, our schedule kind of got mixed up. We have the radiothon going here at the college for West Broadway Youth Outreach.
Yeah.
Did a great job raising.
You ran that.
Yeah. Well, PR majors ran it. I just set this.
You give them the assignment.
I give them the assignment and they do it. So they did a great job, but that also happened in the station here where we normally record. It's funny because usually that day, we've been doing it for a number of years now, same with this podcast, and we've had times. I remember that day, like whenever the first Force Awakens trailer came out, we had to like scramble to go find a spot because we couldn't go in here,
right? Because
they were in here doing the radiothon. There was something else happening in another edit suite, so we had to go into like this weird little suite and kind of share a microphone.
That's the worst.
It was hilarious, just so we could react and do a podcast for the Force Awakens trailer. So that shows
like
our dedication.
We're like the Chilliwack guys around the mic going, gone, you've been gone so long. Gone. Like, that's what it's like. It's impossible to do a podcast sharing a mic.
That's a very obscure reference. That's
gone, you've been gone so long. Once you hear it.
I'm never going to be able to get that out of my head.
And one time I actually saw them play on the Mike Douglas show, and when they were done, Mike Douglas went, gone, you've been gone. Like, you can't, when you hear it for the rest of the day, you're like, you're singing that.
I'm going to be singing that for the rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Chilliwack.
There you go.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
Did we say that?
Yes. Okay.
Perfect.
Let's forget about Chilliwack.
No, I don't want to.
No, okay. And get into the nerd news. So this week, just when we think the whole sexual harassment scandal in Hollywood and other in entertainment is probably a better way of putting it, is over, we have a few more names that have come forward this week. Most notably, Matt Lauer, who was fired. And now this is interesting because it's happened a little bit differently from the other ones that have happened over the last month or so. He was fired by NBC on Wednesday ahead of stories that were about to be published by Variety and the New York Times. Both those publications were working on stories. They had sources telling them about things that Matt Lauer had done to them. And so the NBC decided to get ahead of it. They say they received a complaint Monday.
They said it was the first time in 20 years that they received a complaint.
Yeah, clearly this behavior, allegedly, I guess we have to say allegedly, had gone on for gone. It was gone. So, sorry, I couldn't help it. Not that it had gone on for so long. I can't get it out of my head.
I know, it's impossible.
It had gone on for a long time. And so they say, but I mean, do you believe that it was their first complaint about this?
Well, there's already two more who've come forward since then, and that we know of. It's hard to believe that. I mean, apparently we were saying before the podcast, he had a button that locked people that was supposed to be for security. Like, I guess all the on-air personalities have it.
Have you used to work in that building?
I did. It's unbelievable.
The security there is insane.
But the
security at Rockefeller Center was, when I went to New York, was more strict than that at the Empire State Building.
See, I had a little intern card when I worked there, and some days I'd forget it and just walk in and nobody said a word. You could flash them anything.
That's pre 9/11 though. After 9/11, everything is locked down.
That's true, but I think they probably imagine some scenario where somebody tries to kidnap their on-air talent or something, maybe.
Okay,
so they've built this thing in, which turned out to be a way he trapped people in his office.
I gotta say, I can't see any other purpose for having a button that you can lock the door from your desk. The only purpose to that is that you don't have to get up and lock the door and be obvious about locking the door, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you were really afraid of people coming to your office, then lock it when you walk in. Walk in, lock the door, fine, no big deal. People won't come in if they can call you or whatever. But if you have a button under your desk, that means you want to lock somebody in there with you without them knowing it. Or you want to, the reason you want to lock somebody in there with you so nobody else can stumble in on you doing something.
Yeah, that's probably
really what
right.
It is, right?
That's probably right.
And so how do you request that?
Although it said in the article that it was for security.
I don't know.
So
I don't buy it.
That wouldn't surprise me though, because when you look at the folks working there, you could imagine a scenario where the on-air talent becomes a target of someone.
Oh no, absolutely. But
and I think that's probably what that is.
But is that like just to make him happy? Like he says, I want a button that locks my door from underneath my desk.
That's a different story.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what he would have had to have said that to somebody.
If it's by request, that's a whole other issue.
Well, how can it not be by request?
Well, if they all have it,
I don't think they all had it.
And it's I don't know if
I don't think Katie Couric
had that. I think the problem with these stories is you hear any detail,
I know.
and then you go like, that explains everything.
Yes,
and you're like,
yeah.
well, it might not explain
and
everything.
Believe me, I'm not like assuming everything that is being
like
said
people are
is
going
true.
back to his interviews and going, see, like that kind of thing, and it's like, okay, but I mean, it's so hard to imagine somebody not knowing about this. But you know what I will say about Matt Lauer is I've watched the Today Show like off and on for years and years and years since I was a kid, probably. Right. And he always seemed not happy.
Oh, really?
On there. Yeah, he's always kind of like grudgingly doing things, and he always has a look on his face like his mind is elsewhere. And and in Halloween they all dress up and like the Wizard of Oz or something, and he's like half-heartedly doing it. Like he always seemed, his entire participation on that show seemed half-hearted to me. And I think maybe that's a reflection of maybe what he was thinking about, or maybe it was a reflection of maybe he just hated that job. And
why do it for 20 years then?
Well, it pays $20 million a year.
Okay.
So maybe
sure.
So maybe that was all there was to it. And he's also getting much of the blame. He got it at the time, and now it's sort of come back for forcing Ann Curry off that show.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So everybody's looking at the recording where he tries to kiss her on her last show, and she turns her head away.
Yeah.
So he can't do it, and so everybody's sort of trying to put the pieces together. But I don't think anybody imagined he would be doing that kind of stuff.
Well, that's the thing about
and it's still kind of unclear.
Here's the thing. I have to say this, that in almost every case of this whole thing, since Harvey Weinstein and every single name that's come forward, I have really not been overly surprised. Like, I would be surprised if Tom Hanks turned out to be the next person.
Well, how about Garrison Keillor yesterday?
Well, yeah, but what is that about, though? Garrison Keillor,
don't know.
From what I just read one piece on it, and they just said that NPR was it NPR or PBS or whoever, Public Radio,
Minnesota Public
Radio has fired him amid allegations that he was inappropriate at something. It was, as far as I could tell from the piece I read, one incident in which, and he answered questions, and he said, I went to pat her on the back and I touched her bare back or something like that. Something like that. He claims it was a miscommunication. He didn't mean to do it. He apologized. And then when he asked her about it later, she said, no, don't worry about it. It's fine. And then now the person's coming forward. So that's a little more murky for me because, I mean,
but even the Matt Lauer stuff, we knew more about the Harvey Weinstein thing. And that's why all of these, Carolla on his podcast has lately been saying, well, they're not all the same. Like, we make a big mistake when we
paint the ball with the same brush.
It's all the same thing
right.
is happening everywhere, and you go, well, no, maybe it is and maybe it isn't. But like what Bill Cosby has been accused of is
worse than
on a level, right?
Yeah.
It's on a whole other level, probably. I mean, I don't know if people would agree. I don't know.
It's
a very weird.
Blows me away. It is very weird. The Cosby thing has been happening for a couple of years now, and then that kind of finally went away because the court case is done. Mm-hmm. He was acquitted or whatever it was. But it's just, no, I'll come back. And I think it's a good thing that we have this conversation and that people are aware that this is happening and that hopefully leads to it stopping. I'm glad that people feel they can come forward. But at the same time, I do think there are some instances of miscommunication. I think there are legitimately some instances of miscommunication, and the intent is not to hurt people, but people are hurt. Right? Like maybe Al Franken. I don't know. Al Franken was one that I was kind of surprised about.
Well, even the Al Franken one, the photo that was being paraded around was like, that's what a comedian.
Well, he's joking around,
right?
And why would you, if you was something like malicious intended, why would you allow somebody to take a photo of it?
Why would you be? Yeah, that's right.
Right. So anyway.
Right, like there, and there's also, I mean, it's so confusing because. Is Louis C.K.
That didn't surprise me.
But he takes a public drubbing. But the president of the United States has 13 accusers, and he's like, "Well, I believe Roy Moore because he denies it."
Right.
He's very low.
No,
he's got a very low bar for. Oh, if you deny it, then I believe you.
Yes,
then you must believe the person if they deny it.
Yeah.
So all of this is coming together in a horrible nightmare. At the same time, we've got Kim Jong-un and we've got Trump retweeting fascist British groups videos on the same day. Like the Garrison Keillor stuff was so low on the list that it almost didn't even. We had a guy drink poison yesterday on trial and drink poison in public at the trial, and that was like the 20th item on the news.
I know, it was an insane day.
It was just crazy. But this is, I mean, like, I think what we're seeing is a link between men in the entertainment business and the news business.
Yeah.
Where I think power and fame, and for every like, I think what happens is that guy gets used to doing this, and maybe he's successful at doing this, and it continues and it keeps going, and it goes unchecked because, I mean, in Matt Lauer's case, he's got, like, apparently that morning segment on the Today Show he was on brought in more money for NBC than anything else on NBC.
Yeah, he's valuable too. And
right.
it was, I mean, one could almost argue it was a similar situation as Jian Ghomeshi here in Canada, which happened a number of years ago, but a similar situation in which he's being very, very inappropriate in the workplace, which is not just in the workplace, but there was
with fans,
with fellow employees saying inappropriate things to employees at the CBC, and the CBC apparently letting that go for a long time until it all kind of came to a head, and then they fired him, which is what they should have done. And now NBC has fired Matt Lauer. So did NBC? I mean, did they let it go on too long? Probably. But they've now done the right thing and let him go. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, they could have avoided however many people.
I think this is so new that it's hard, and as I say, it's wrong to lump it all and say it's one thing, and that's what the media is so good at doing, is taking a bunch of stuff and making a connection for people, and that can be super dangerous.
There's a bunch of creepy guys who work in entertainment and media. These are all the same kind of creepy guys, and
even stand-up comedy.
Yes,
like, it's known in stand-up comedy that people who are in stand-up comedy are sometimes rough characters.
Yes,
and sometimes their reputation precedes them, and sometimes it doesn't precede them. And is Louis C.K. that different from somebody performing at the open mic show in Idaho who does that?
Yeah, he's not.
But he's a public figure.
But the other thing is that he used his power over employees and other people who wanted his help. Same with Matt Lauer. He used his power over people to, I mean, are you going to tell your boss, if you're an intern at NBC and he's making advances, are you going to tell him no and risk your career? Risk, like, him blacklisting you and say, no, that the person should not work in this.
It's fame as
that kind
well.
Of stuff,
like, Matt Lauer is one of the most famous faces on TV in the U.S.
Yeah, I guess.
No, he is.
Okay.
It's massive. Like, the reason that show brought in so much money was because it was so popular. No,
it's a good show, though. If you go at morning news shows or whatever in the States, that's probably the best one.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, we didn't even talk about Charlie Rose. That was another one that came
forward.
That was
massive.
And so we have 2 of the 3 morning shows. What about George Stephanopoulos? What's happening with him?
No.
Isn't he on the other one? Is he on ABC?
Yeah.
I'm just joking. Nothing's wrong with George Stephanopoulos.
No, there's nothing at all wrong. But it wouldn't. But that's the thing. That's the world we live in now. Is nobody would be surprised.
Yeah, exactly.
But we also we did a whole podcast on Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
And I was saying to you before the podcast, we jumped the gun. Because that was just the start.
I honestly, I don't want. I feel like we're beating a dead horse here. I don't want to spend too much more time on this, except to say.
But it is new.
Oh, absolutely, and it's something we need to talk about. And I think that what's changed I think part of the reason NBC did this now. I mean, they got ahead of the story, which is good. So they fired him. They released a statement. They're being upfront about it. They knew Variety and the New York Times were working on the story because they would have reached out to them for comment. And I don't think NBC did comment on those pieces, but they kind of took it under their own advisement to take care of the problem, so they can come at it and say yes. Other than, like, for example, Netflix firing Kevin Spacey after the fact, they did it ahead of the story coming out. But the culture now has shifted to where it is okay for people to come forward and talk about these things happening. That is the difference. Back when, I mean, for the last 20 years that Matt Lauer has worked at NBC, if he was doing these things, the culture was, you don't report on it, people are not going to believe you. That's been the problem for decades. If this kind of thing happens, he can get away with it because you can't say anything because people will think you're lying to do something to boost your own career. People, because there was a history of people doing that. There's always this portion of the population that does that as well, but that became the popular conception of what this kind of person would be doing. So the fact that someone's actually reporting on it happening to them, really happening to them, they're just kind of dismissed. Now people can report on it, and I'm sure that the publications, the media outlets are doing their diligence. They're not just reporting on hearsay. They are actually trying to get at the facts of the thing. They're not just reporting these things to smear all these people. So these are true stories.
There's also the new kind of social media brings a whole other element to this stuff, and kind of the town square is now social media. And so the other thing that's a concern is, what if somebody's not guilty and they're being hung out in the public square?
Yeah, no kidding.
Like there's a whole lot of elements here.
The court of public opinion is stronger than ever.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? And people it doesn't matter. And even he said, so Matt Lauer apologized today. He released a statement. He said, as part of it, he said, some of what's being said about me is untrue or mischaracterized, but there's enough truth in these stories to make me feel embarrassed and ashamed. So, probably people are exaggerating. Probably people are not remembering things completely clearly, but clearly he is guilty of doing something wrong here. And he's admitting that, but also trying to pull back and say, hey, listen, I'm not that much of an ass. Well, when really he kind of is.
Well, then there's a whole other issue of, has a crime been committed? Right? Like with Harvey Weinstein.
I don't see anybody. Well, Harvey Weinstein, they are actually investigating.
Right.
That.
So it's like that's the thing. That's the other thing. If there is tons of publicity before a case, sometimes that means the person can't get a fair trial.
That's right.
And sometimes that means
Bill Cosby.
Things get thrown out because the judge goes, oh, well, yeah, you can't get a fair trial, or it's prejudicial information was released to the media or something.
Good luck finding a jury of someone's peers when all the peers have been.
And so that's the other danger that happens here. If a crime has been committed, you could be doing a disservice by spreading stuff that may or may not be true.
Right.
That's the other concerning element of this. That the courts need to do their work. And by the way, Gian Gomeshi, of course, was found not guilty.
Right. Exactly.
At his trial, but in the court of public opinion,
he's guilty.
Part of what that case was looking at that stuff. It's stuff that had been shared leading up to the trial.
Right.
And text messages between people and whatnot. So that's the kind of thing. I don't know. It's a new world.
It is.
It's a new world.
And I'm hoping we're going to change for the better. Certainly, it can't go back to what it was. Can't go back to this happening in secret, behind closed doors, behind locked closed doors that you get to log from your desk. So
Fame always relied. Man. Fame always relied on being a one-way push of information. So you see actors in movies and know nothing about their personal lives, and then find out later, kind of thing, that they use their fame to whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's an ongoing story, but what's new is social media and sort of the swiftness and speed at which that we're hearing about this stuff.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable.
Let's move on to some happier news.
Yeah.
Yesterday, among all the other things happening yesterday, Marvel dropped the trailer for the Avengers Infinity War film coming out next May. And the internet pretty much lost its mind. I mean, everybody I know is extremely excited for this movie based on this trailer. What did you think of it?
I thought it was good.
Yeah?
I didn't think it was amazing, but I thought it was definitely good, and they leave you wanting more.
Yeah, so that it doesn't give away too much, just enough, I thought, to tease us and to get us excited about it. Part of what does it for me is the music. I love that Avengers theme. I think it's so iconic, so amazing, and it does bring me back to the first Avengers film, which is still my favorite Marvel movie after all these years, still my favorite one. And it looked good. A couple things I thought were interesting. And certainly this is something we've seen, a trend we've noticed over the last few movies. They just, Robert Downey Jr. does not want to spend any more time in that suit than he has to. Mm-hmm. He's sitting there in regular clothes for half the movie. Like, really? Are you really going to be sitting there and not have your arm around? But he's probably got the thing where he just hits his chest and it pops out.
Yeah,
probably. Now. It's probably like instantaneous now. He's got that technology to the point where he can just put it on whenever. Whereas in the comic book, he was always wearing, like, he was almost never out of that suit in the comic. He was like, if he was at home relaxing, he was like Tony Stark. But now it's like every almost every single scene, it's like him. You got to see his face. If he has a suit on, he's got the mask off.
Right.
So there's that.
Because they pay them so much.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Gotta use that's the moneymaker.
face.
That's good. That's the moneymaker. A lot of people were kind of having fun with Thanos, the way Thanos looked in the trailer.
Looks CGI.
Yeah, not as bad, by the way, as Steppenwolf from Justice League.
I've not yet seen that.
I have. I went to see Justice League opening weekend with my son, with Luke, and he wanted to see it. And boy, does that Steppenwolf look awful. That's like Jar Jar Binks level.
Wow.
It's really bad. And I'm surprised that, like, I think part of the issue is it's that uncanny valley, right? Our mind knows that it's not a real person, but it's supposed to look enough like a person that we're supposed to be tricked by it. Same thing with like Tarkin and Leia on Rogue One. So it's CGI. So I think the more we see Thanos, the more we'll get used to it. So I suspect going forward, a lot of these clips are going to include Thanos so we can get used to seeing his face like this. Every other time we've seen him in the saga, in all these films, it's in the dark, he's in space, there's not a lot of light. But now we're seeing him like in full daylight, baldness on display. Like, I didn't know he was bald. I just kind of assumed that he had something. He's always wearing a hat. So it looks a little weird. And by the way, Justice League, okay. I'll give it, like, I'm not even going to give it a recommendation.
I hear the worst CGI is Superman's mustache.
It is so bad. And I didn't even notice it at first. I'm like, huh? What? And then I realized what it was. I'm like, oh, I see what they're doing there. So anyway, but I would say it's better. I'll say this, better than Batman versus Superman, but that's not saying much. Nowhere near as good as Wonder Woman, which remains the best movie of that series. And maybe gives me hope for the future in that, like, the individual Flash and Aquaman movies could be good because those characters were pretty good. So that's all I'll say. It's I don't know. But rent it when it comes out.
How much did you love the Avengers trailer? Like,
I loved it. Oh man, I was so excited.
I thought it was fine. I was
excited.
Watched it when I got home. I was like, that's good.
I watched it in the morning as soon as I saw it was out. I'm like, Luke, come here, and Luke came over and we watched it on my computer. And from the beginning, where you see like there was this idea, and it's Sam Jackson saying the whole thing that he kind of goes back to the first Avengers. We're seeing some great little clips. I don't know how Vision becomes human. Like, it's all like the whole thing is just designed to get these actors' faces out for real now.
Right.
Because of Vision, I mean, the actor was covered in makeup.
Right.
So now he's not. We see him with his jewel in his head, and he just looks like a regular human. So clearly the tech has improved. We see Doctor Strange. We see the best part for me is the end with the Guardians of the Galaxy at the end.
Of course, that's the money shot.
That's such a good shot. It just looks really good. Now, is it going to be good? I don't know. I mean, I was excited about the Age of Ultron trailer as well, and that turned out to be not as good as I was hoping for.
Yeah, that's true. I bought the Ultron figure in anticipation, and it's like, now it sits on my shelf, unwanted by anyone, including the owner.
So I don't know. We'll see. But for now, I'm very excited. I hope that it's good. I think this could be the end of the current run of Iron Man, Captain America, those heroes, because they're now, I think this is the end of their contract. Yeah. I mean, although they've been talking about another Iron Man movie, but I think Evans is done after this.
The money truck will roll up, and then who will say no?
But I think Marvel could take a break here and focus on some lesser known properties, and then in the interim, take a 10-year break, maybe come back to Captain America and recast him at that point. They're gonna have to recast him at some point. It's so funny how we
go back in time. I mean, there's all that.
It's funny how we accept the recasting of a hero like Batman, who has been played by how many different actors have played Batman, and we're like, okay, that's fine, but we can't imagine anybody else playing Iron Man or Captain America. People are really, and even Spider-Man was another one. Spider-Man has been recast 3 times in the last decade. Yeah. And by the way, I don't like the look of his suit there. It looks like he's wearing like a metal suit.
I think that's the one that he got left with at the end of the movie.
Yeah, I don't like it though. I like the first version of his suit that we saw in Civil War. I'm not loving this one so much because it looks just basically like an Iron Man suit. But like
Spider-Man shouldn't be Iron Man.
No, he's not. And then that's one of the things I liked least about Homecoming was all the interactions with the suit. They were all jokes like Iron Man made really well, but trying to do it again with Spider-Man and it didn't work out so well. So we'll see. So,
but I thought it looked good, but I didn't go crazy over it like everybody.
No, I went crazy over it for sure.
I heard that there was a trailer they screened somewhere. I can't remember where now, where the money shot at the end of the trailer. Are we saying what it is? Did you say what it is?
I said it was. Yeah, I said it already.
Okay, so we see Guardians of the Galaxy, but I heard that there's another one that shows how they find Thor. And that they screen sort of the scene for people, and people lost their minds. They loved it so much.
Oh,
So
who finds it?
I think that might have been
how the Guardians of the Galaxy find Thor.
yeah.
Well, I think Billy was pointing out before we started that that's in one of the post-credit scenes of Thor Ragnarok. He thinks it is, and I don't want to spoil. I mean, even this trailer. You haven't seen Thor Ragnarok yet?
I have not.
Okay, well, you know something that happens in it because Thor's only got one eye in this trailer.
Yeah, and he's got a haircut.
Yeah, well, you knew about the haircut because you saw the trailer for Ragnarok. Yeah. But the eye thing happens in Ragnarok.
All right.
He loses his eye.
Okay.
So he looks like his dad more like now.
Sounds good. I'm not worried. What, yeah? I'm supposed to worry about Thor?
No. Believe me, Thor has
yeah, he'll be okay.
He'll be fine. I'm sure he'll be fine. Anyway, so there you go. So
what happened to the eye? Where did it go?
I can't tell you. That's a spoiler.
Does someone have it?
I don't know. I don't know what happened. I can't.
Does he have to get it back?
No, I don't think so. He's accepting it. He's got the eye patch on. He is like his father's son now. He is like Odin. One eye, just like Odin. That's what he's going for. He's going for the Odin look. All right. Anyway.
Does he wear glasses?
No.
Does he have a white cane?
No.
Does he have a dog? Have I guessed anything right?
No, not at all. Nothing right.
Oh, he could have like a little creature that as a dog. That'd be amazing.
He could, and there was
That's not a bad idea.
I guess. Sounds a little bit like a jumping the shark kind of a thing to do, but
did you hear this week? Ryan Johnson said the one thing he didn't do, he's going to do with Luke Skywalker that he decided against was make him blind.
Oh,
did you know that?
That would have been awful.
Well, that's what they decided.
Yeah. That's horrible. Why would you do that?
Well, because he wanted it to be like the classic kung fu movies where the blind guy like kicks everybody's ass. Yeah.
They did that. They did that in Rogue One. They don't need to do it anymore.
That's right. Exactly. that probably solidified it.
I just realizing here we're half an hour into the podcast. We haven't actually got to the main topic yet. So that's going to do it for the nerd news.
Let's do it now.
I'm stopping it now. No more nerd news. We're going to take a quick break, come back, talk about the state of journalism once again in Canada. In addition to all the crazy other stuff that's happened, there was a huge story on Monday here in Canada, specifically about two major newspaper owning companies swapping papers, essentially. There's no money involved in this deal. So the companies are the National Post, Postmedia, who owns the National Post, and all the Suns across Canada, the Sun chain, and Torstar owns the Toronto Star, and then a bunch of community newspapers in Ontario, as far as I can tell. Yeah. Was there anything Torstar owned that was outside of Ontario? Do you know?
I don't think so.
Okay. So this major swap was they basically traded, I think it was around 20-something newspapers each. Like they just kind of did a deal where like, okay, we're each going to take these newspapers, and then most of them got shut down.
Yeah.
So obviously hundreds of people out of a job, dozens of newspapers being shut down. Really, really terrible thing for journalism and for Canadian journalism specifically.
In Winnipeg, especially, it was the Winnipeg Metro.
Right, and I'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
But the question is, why did this happen? Why did they feel? And it's a weird transaction as well. And I don't know that. I think somebody's looking into it as far as the legitimacy of it, and can they just do that, arbitrarily trade publications in order to shut them down? Because what they're doing really is just eliminating competition. Right. I think that is the main reason for it. People are like, oh, they're cutting jobs. They want to, reduce their payroll and the overall, like, this is the best way to solve the problem of newspapers losing money is to lay off people, which they've done for years. But I think underneath all of that is the desire to reduce competition between newspaper publications. And the Globe and Mail had a great piece today, or yesterday's rather. It says which papers could potentially benefit from the Postmedia Torstar deal. Goes through a bunch of lists. It says, okay, here's the Ottawa Sun. They shut down the Ottawa Metro, was the other metro they shut down in addition to Winnipeg. There's the Canada Courier Standard, the Stittsville News, West Carleton Review, Orleans News. These are all community newspapers that publish in the Ottawa area. So the idea being that shut down all these little papers, more people will go to the Ottawa Sun for news. Reducing competition. Here in Winnipeg, shut down the Metro. The Metro was the main competition for the Winnipeg Sun. And, by the way, knocked them off the second place a couple years ago and stayed there. People read the Metro more than the Winnipeg Sun for the last few years. So, but get them into Winnipeg Metro, shut it down. Now people have no choice but to go to the Sun. It's the Sun of the free press. So is that a sound business decision, do you think?
Well, we're lucky we still have two. Start with that premise. There's lots of major cities that don't even have two.
Yeah.
But I mean it's the oldest premise in the book, which is shut down the competition.
Is it?
Yeah.
I've never heard of this happening before in newspapers.
Well, it's also part of the bigger consolidation of the media. We're going to see it in local stations. too.
Well, we're seeing consolidation.
Like TV stations.
We're
We'll
we're seeing TV and radio stations combined. So for example, CGLB is owned by Chorus, which is also owns Global. So when they do their news now, it's the Global News Center. It's not CGLB News Center. None of the brand around news on CGLB is around CGLB. It's which is arguably a stronger news brand in Winnipeg than Global is.
Yeah,
been around way longer. CGLB's been around for like 70 years.
Oh yeah.
So people know
Beloved.
that's a huge like. That is news. CGOB is news. Global is still pretty new, even though it was like a company that was born here in Winnipeg. Yeah. Not very many people can think of it as like a part of Winnipeg.
That's
we
right.
Still think of CKND, of the old TV station that it used to be.
Right.
A lot of people still think of it in terms of that. So I just wonder, like, and so we're seeing like that's, radio, TV combined together. They don't, all they have as far as print is their website. So they've not like actually printed something, but they could. I mean, I don't think they're going to go there because everyone seems to agree that the physical print media is dying and that it will go away at some point. But the publications like the Free Press and the Sun, and no longer the Metro, but they still have everything built around that printing press model.
Yeah.
So they don't feel that they're losing enough money to get rid of that yet. That's what they have that nobody else has.
Right.
They have the physical papers. People still read those physical papers. We're going to keep printing them as long as we can. I think that's the method there, or that's the thought there.
Well, no, that's exactly right, and I mean, it's interesting. I mentioned to you I had my students doing a research assignment based on there's a great report called the Platform Press by I'm going to screw up their names, Emily and Owen. Emily, no, actually, if you Google the Platform Press, it'll be the first thing that comes up, and. It just is the best discussion about the state of the newspaper industry and how online publishers fit in. And if you you're bringing it up there,
I'm Googling the Platform Press.
Yeah. So tell me does it come up first?
How Silicon Valley re-engineered journalism
by what are their names?
I'm still getting there. The internet is very slow in here. Ironically,
I'm gonna probably mix up their last name. Owen Taylor and Emily Bell, or Owen Bell and Emily Taylor, one or the other. But
still loading. See, if I had a physical paper, I could open it. This is how.
Oh God!
This is how print media is better than online media. It would be open, and I would have it open already, reading it already. I have to wait for this to load. What is this?
Then you'd have to search it. That's
Emily
the part that takes a long time.
Emily Bell and Taylor Owen
mixed up their names. Yeah, Emily Bell and Taylor Owen. So that whole document, it's fantastic. I'll
link to it on our social media.
Yeah, it lines it all up, and it basically says, here's what the issue is. Here's the decision they have to make. You can't play you can't invest a little bit in online and a little bit this way. You have to make a firm decision. You have to go in one direction or the other. So I had my students research it and do it. They did a survey and I basically had them apply it to the Winnipeg Free Press. And
I answered a few of those surveys, by the way.
Yes, and what did you think of them?
Well, the questions were, I think, pretty. For the ones I answered, pretty. I mean, I didn't have many options other than to answer the paywall sucks. That was kind of my overall thoughts because I didn't see any other. It's not like they were asking me what else could they do. They were just asking me what I thought of the current system, which I guess is the goal of it, right? Is that what you wanted?
Yeah,
people to
because
do?
I mean, basically, so they start with this document, and this document outlines. There's an executive summary too, so you don't have to read the whole report. You can just read the executive summary.
Awesome.
But the report basically says that you have a choice. Like you either go all in on your own platform and you find the best way to monetize it, and you forego Facebook. You just don't go there, or you go all in on Facebook, and for lower profit but bigger reach, you use that platform to monetize. And it's like, do one or the other. And so part of what the research was designed to do was that a lot of folks ended the research by saying, therefore, somebody needs to make a decision. And it's like, yeah, that's you. That's you personally.
What decision? Your job is to recommend what decision they make. That's what you're trying to get them to do.
You need to recommend a decision. So and the thing is, and I think that speaks to the fact it's a difficult decision.
Oh, absolutely. Because you're asking people to give up what has been their source of revenue for decades, if not centuries. Not centuries. It's a century or more for print newspapers. It's been a tried and true model forever and ever. And then the last 10 years come around and all of a sudden, what, this isn't working anymore. We can't make as much money as we were doing. What do we do? And I have to give them credit. They're trying. They are absolutely trying. The Winnipeg Free Press is sticking with that paywall. It's been 2.5 years now. I remember saying when they first launched it, we did a podcast episode, and I said I give it 2 years max. They've passed that. They're still sticking to it. I can say that I've honestly hit that paywall and been very frustrated at times, because I've wanted to read the piece that is behind that paywall. So they've almost made me want to pay for it. And it's almost more just stubbornness on my part that I wasn't willing to. I mean, really, if I was a good communications person, I would support the Free Press and subscribe to their online publication, which I should do, because they do have a lot of great content.
I still
there.
buy the print.
Yeah,
Not every day. Not every day.
I read the print, in passing. If I'm in the doctor's office and there's a paper there, I'll read
Grocery store.
Yeah, something like that.
That's a good.
Or even your checkout line to the grocery store. But but I don't buy the physical. We talked about this. I don't buy the physical paper anymore. I certainly don't get it delivered. I don't have time in the morning. Although I back when I was renting the cabin a couple summers ago, I really enjoyed getting the paper there because it's nice and relaxing. You can read it, take your time with it, and that kind of thing. What was I saying? Oh yeah, but they are still trying to do stuff. The Free Press is they're launching more and more podcasts. They have a few new podcasts out. Bury the Lead is one that's it's a and they spell it
Counterproductive.
What bothers me is they spell lead in that pretentious
LEDE.
I hate that. I honestly hate
It's like
that.
cream. CREME.
Like seriously, and the reason I looked it up because I'm like, why did they spell it that way? And apparently back in the day, they were worried people would mix up the word with lead. Like lead poisoning.
Oh yeah,
like lead.
That makes sense.
Well, it's still lead means lead, right? It's like I don't know. Anyway, I'm not a fan of the spelling, but it's a great podcast. I'm blanking on their names. I think Jen Zarati and I don't remember the name of the other journalist. It's kind of like this. They just talk about stuff, whatever's coming across their desk. It's fun. It's interesting. It needs a sponsor. I had the ad majors do an exercise where they were researching locally produced podcasts in order to match them up with potential sponsors.
Well, that's good. That's a good assignment.
It's a good assignment because it was more of an exercise. I didn't give them marks for it because you have to sift through a lot of crap. I love the podcasting community here in Winnipeg, but there are varying levels of quality when it comes to podcasts. And there are many that are on that far end of like, okay, some guy sitting on his mom's couch talking about stuff to what we do. Haha, we're the professionals in the fancy studio on TV. But I think Bury the Lead, certainly the Winnipeg Free Press should have no problem getting a sponsor for that show. They need a sponsor. Same with their sports shows. They have a couple different sports podcasts that are really good. And this is something I suggested they do years and years ago when I said what I said at the time was they should start a radio station, but this is the same thing. Podcasts are awesome. So they're doing a great job with that. They're sticking with the paywall.
But they're still sharing stuff on Facebook. It's really interesting. It was something that most of the students noticed was they're using organic. So they're organically posting articles on their Facebook page, which no one can read.
Exactly. That's a huge problem.
What you'll see is that they have tons of people liking their Facebook page and almost nobody liking the post.
Yeah, because if you don't interact with it, Facebook makes it go away. It doesn't show up in the algorithm anymore, so it doesn't show up in people's feeds.
Yeah.
So if I was to recommend a decision based on what that piece, the assignment that you gave the students, I would recommend that they stay away from Facebook. They go in on their own platform, stay away from Facebook. I think Facebook has been a bad thing for journalism.
Mm-hmm.
It encourages the sharing of fake news, so to speak. It just basically people can share whatever, and it's all about kind of the fun, interactive stuff. I mean, it's not always about that, but often it is the fun, cute. Okay. Example, James Turner, our colleague James Turner, former employee of the Metro as well, but also former Winnipeg Free Press journalist, shared a video of these very cute, fluffy puppies. Yeah. Right? Did you see the video?
I did not.
Okay. It's just, he's a dog person. He all he did was share it, tag a couple other people we work with, other people who love dogs. That's it. Didn't tag me in it. And I didn't even like it or anything. I didn't touch it. I just great. But you know how many times that thing came up in my feed? Every single day for the last week, that thing has been the top of my feed because everybody's liking it, clicking on it, and it keeps coming back. And I'm like, I don't want to see this anymore. I don't want to see these freaking puppies. Yeah. So that's part of the problem with Facebook is that it's encouraging this kind of meaningless content to come to the forefront, and the more serious stuff that we need to know is not. The more serious stuff that we should be reading is not coming up.
The algorithm, it used to be, they used to give you a choice. You could see the algorithm, what's that called again? It's just like Twitter. The algorithm that just
let Facebook choose the best post for you.
nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
No,
right?
Don't choose it for me.
Yeah,
let me see it as it's posted.
Let's see the organic feed. So therefore, I think that, and this is actually part of a bigger problem with online advertising. And again, this is the source of the issue for print publications, where they can't offer the same deal that Facebook or Google or YouTube offers as far as like cheap advertising. Like you just cannot match that. It's too cheap. The reason it's cheap, because Facebook all these companies use an algorithm to govern it. This choice of using an algorithm has backfired hugely for Facebook with the whole Trump, Russian, blah, 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 the whole thing happening right now. Is it still happening?
Of course.
What have they found?
The investigation, it's still they're still doing it.
Okay.
I kept thinking, I thought the earliest would be Christmas, that we get a report or something, that something comes out. But Facebook said this December, so tomorrow's December, they said that you'll be able to, they will provide a service. Apparently you can go online and see if you liked any fake news.
Well, I don't care about that now.
Well, no, but
what does it matter?
They'll show people.
Oh,
basically, that's their first step toward transparency.
Whatever. How about you just not have us, how
just don't post the fake news.
Put someone in charge, put a person there instead of an algorithm. The problem
they
happening.
hired a bunch.
Well, good.
Yeah.
The problem happening over at YouTube right now, they're calling it the adpocalypse on YouTube, because YouTube is trying to police. And this is something that just kind of came to my attention recently, but there are, I don't know what the purpose of this could possibly be, but there are some trolls or bots or whatever they are posting really, really inappropriate videos aimed at kids, and they're using popular kids characters like Elsa and other Disney characters in an inappropriate way. And I think it's obviously started by somebody, but it's being proliferated by bots. So it's like ongoing, new channels, new posts, everything's been automated. So YouTube is trying to battle this by shutting down videos with what they think is inappropriate content. But that is hurting genuine YouTubers. My kids' favorite YouTubers are it's Funnel Vision, FGTV. They have a couple different channels. They started out as a Skylander boy and girl, and their videos are hilarious. They're kids friendly. They talk about like pee and poo and stuff like that, but that's like kid humor. It's also part of like have a baby, so it's part of living with a baby, and that's something I can identify with, having raised children myself. This is what you missed out on, man, by not having kids. Anyway, but the guy, like, he doesn't usually talk about this stuff, but the dad in this family posted a big long video yesterday saying, this is what's happening to us. Our videos are getting taken down. The comments are being disabled. We're not giving any reason as to why they're being flagged as inappropriate. They're not telling us specifically what it is. It's just a bot or an algorithm saying inappropriate, shut down, demonetize, and so they're losing revenue and they're losing videos and views and everything. So my advice to them would be, get off of YouTube. Take it away from YouTube. Go somewhere else, post your videos, monetize it yourselves. They've already built their audience. Monetize it yourselves, just like you would say to the newspaper, and then go from there. That's what you have to do. So,
yeah, that's exactly right.
That's what I would say to the Free Press or to any other newspaper having trouble right now. Do the best you can, monetize it. Now, maybe that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to do the best they can by eliminating competition.
Well, and also
the print.
Figure out what you're selling. What's the product here? And not just that, not just what's the product, but I have always said that, and we even had a whole podcast on it, that the archival records of some of these newspapers is just unbelievable. They have awesome stuff. I follow a Facebook group called Vintage Winnipeg or something like that, and they post these really cool photos of old Winnipeg. I love it. I love watching that stuff. I love seeing that stuff. There's also a History and Pictures Twitter account I follow where they post like cool pictures of like old photos of stuff that happened, you know. That's awesome too. So that kind of stuff, but people should and would pay for that kind of stuff if they monetize it properly. So I know one thing, when we decided on this topic for the podcast this week, I said I want to come and say something different, because every week we come and we say, every time we talk about this, it's all about like what the newspapers are doing wrong. They don't know what they're doing. They're not realizing what they need to do. I think that's I think now they realize what they need to do, and they're just reluctant to. They need to terminate that print model. Maybe this step is meant to be the first step in that, like this whole swap deal and shutting down those papers. But this is all too much focus on the print, and it's obviously is about cutting jobs as well. But they need to really start focusing on their online component. Well, that's how you run a business now.
Let it go. Let the print go. You know, you have to let that physical print go.
And I think also for the students, it was a major, like so we end the semester doing this research assignment. The day they handed into me, the Metro Winnipeg closes.
No kidding.
Where you're kind of like, oh no, like that, it hit pretty close to home.
Yeah.
But it's also our students are communication students. So they look at it like, well, there's one less place they could go for a work placement.
I guarantee that too. I know we had a student going there for work placement. I don't know where that student is going now. But the other thing is that I guarantee our journalism class next year is going to be at a record low.
You think so?
We have 7 journalism majors this year.
Oh boy.
7, which is it was the lowest it's ever been since I've been here as an instructor.
Yeah, me too.
And it was like 20 my first year. The first year, 2011, when I was first an instructor here, I taught the J Majors radio class. 21 students.
This program used to be called the journalism program.
Yes.
That's how everybody thought of it. That was the brand. And over the years, just because of the industry, and so many parents tell their kids, there's no jobs in journalism, so don't take communication. Don't go to communication. But it's like we teach more than that, of course. But that little segment of the program has become less alluring.
Yeah, no, and the big draw was the journalism program, and specifically the TV journalism class, that big broadcast J class that all the students love to take. And that, again, is losing meaning as well, because TV journalism is not the same as it once was. And it's not, I think that's the next victim in this is television, like the local newscast is going to have to go something. Something's going to have to happen.
Young communication professionals used to want to get past the gatekeeper, to get the job that gave them a big audience. Now that big audience is gettable without getting that job.
Yeah.
You can just, with getting a YouTube channel and promoting the hell out of it. And you can reach around the world. You can actually do better posting a YouTube video of cats and dogs or whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
And you can get a much wider reach than actually reporting.
But it's not going to be like the same kind of audience you would get as being on a television show. It's not going to be maybe as wide of an audience. It's not going to be as many people, like numerically. It's going to be a smaller audience, probably a more niche audience, but probably more dedicated. And that's the huge thing that newspapers, I think, have failed to realize, is that their audience is shrinking. It's not just about people not reading physical newspapers. It's about people getting the news from that source is going away. And people are seeing all these other platforms come up to take their place, and they're not, like, for example, the Free Press, by they've taken themselves out of it by putting up the paywall. So people can easily go to other platforms to get news. They don't care that it's not as well written or it's not as interesting or whatever. They don't, because they don't even know the stuff's happening over the Free Press because they can't get behind the paywall. So that's the other issue they face, is how do they remain. I think competition is a good thing for journalism. Taking away the competition is not the answer here. Because if you have no competition, you have no incentive to do better than the other person. So I think, in all these Ontario markets where they're taking away one of the newspapers, now people will have no choice but to go to one source, and that'll be it. And then who knows if that's accurate? Who knows if they're taking their time? There's no incentive for them to do better.
Right.
They're just going to do what they need to do to sell newspapers, and that sucks.
Well, and then we will reach the critical moment where, how many people do you need to run a newspaper? Like, that's the other big question.
Well, they're answering that right now with like as little as possible, right?
And then the quality drops.
Yeah.
And then nobody wants to buy the product.
Right.
And it's just this vicious circle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting upset just thinking about it. We have to let it go. We've already gone, like, it's a crazy topic. We talk about this every once in a while. Well, I'm sure we'll come back to it. I think we need to re-examine the adpocalypse in a future episode of Media Nerds, because that's a bigger topic in itself. So maybe we'll talk about that in the new year.
Well, next semester I talk about all that stuff with my students,
right.
So that'd be perfect timing to do that.
That's a good time to do that. And as well, you went to the Can Leon. We didn't talk about that either.
Oh no, we'll do. Yeah. Normally we do that. I went to the Can Lions. It's pronounced
whatever.
Can Lions.
I always like to be French.
As we call it in Winnipeg, the Cannes Lions. I went to that and it was great. It's great this year.
Yes.
So
sure.
It's at the Winnipeg Art Gallery starting mid-December.
We'll talk about that in a future episode. Advertising in general, but the adpocalypse is this huge thing that's it's coming to a head. I think the result hopefully will be more expensive advertising online, but better quality advertising online, and that might help out our friends at the newspapers if they're able to charge more for online content and provide better advertising. That might help
old
them.
content marketing model.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's if you've got an ad blocker on and no one can see your ad, well then
I love the message when I go to the Free Press website. It says, our website is not responding well to ad blockers. Please disable your ad blocker until further notice. It's like, come on. Like no kidding. It's not working because your ads, it's not showing your ads. Is that the problem?
My students who have their ad blockers on sometimes can't even see content marketing.
Yeah.
Like at the New York Times, I get them to have a look.
It's because everything's skewed so far into the direction of spammy stuff that it's gone too far in that way. They don't want to see that stuff. Anyway, let's put a pin in this for now.
Put a pin in it.
Put a pin, and then let's go over to the recommendations. What do you have to recommend this week for media?
It has been. You're talking about the ad apocalypse. I'm talking about the media apocalypse.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's so much out there.
And we took a week off too, which means there's even more.
There is an unbelievable amount out there, and because on Media Nerds we often talk about comic books, like as we did today with the Avengers. I am gonna. It's so tough. I got so much I could recommend, but I'm going to say I've watched the first 3 episodes of The Punisher.
Oh, okay.
Have you watched it?
I have watched the first 3 episodes of The Punisher as well.
I like it.
I do too.
Yeah, I think it's one of the stronger entries. I have not been a big fan of that actor in the past.
No, neither have I.
He was such a pain in the ass on Walking Dead.
I was glad to see him die on Walking Dead.
Me too. I could not wait to get rid of him. But I think part of that was the writing on the show.
Well, yeah.
That just made him painful. Like, if I had to take one more day watching that guy stewing... I couldn't have taken.
I also, and by the way, he's a delight to hear interviewed. He was on the Nerdist and just a really cool guy and really funny and so down to earth.
He looked like he got a little pumped up for this role. Looks like he was at the gym for about 15 years.
He had to put on the muscles for it. But
it's good.
I was pleasantly surprised because I did not like his appearance in Daredevil that much. That second season of Daredevil was not great. And I kind of blamed part of that on the Punisher being a part of it. So I thought I'd check it out. Let's watch the first episode, see how it is. That's pretty good. Watch another one. That's pretty good, and I can kind of see where it's going now. It's certainly a good statement about the state of the military in the States. About soldiers coming back from war with PTSD. That's an essential theme. The guns. I read one review that said it's the wrong show at the wrong time because it's so heavily focused on the proliferation of weapons and violence in the U.S. after something like the Vegas shooting or all these other shootings we've had recently. This is not the right time to have this conversation. I disagree. This is absolutely the right time to have this conversation. This is why the show is very relevant at this time, and they should keep it going and keep that conversation going. I think we need to keep talking about it.
I think like the show is like kind of like Luke Cage in some ways, but that the writing's sharper. It just seems like it's a little bit, I don't know, it's a little sharper in terms of storytelling so far anyway. I've not seen the ending of it, but I will watch it for sure.
Me too, yeah.
Like it just seems a little bit better than what we've seen on Netflix for Marvel before.
Well, and we know now that Marvel can stumble when it comes to these shows because did you ever watch Iron Fist?
Still not.
Okay, so
so many people hated it that I love that character.
I took it with a big grain of salt, so I didn't mind it so much. I saw it for what it was, but still not a very well put together show. I'll come right out and say the Inhumans was god awful.
Yeah.
Inhumans was horrible. Do not watch it. The finale, the season finale came, or series finale, who knows, came and went, and I didn't even notice. I didn't even care.
That's bad.
I'm like, whatever. So that was awful. But however, there's another new show, and this will be my recommendation for the week, The Runaways, which started on Showcase.
I've seen the preview for it 10 billion times.
It's a Hulu show, so in the States, you just get it on Hulu, I guess. But it was picked up here in Canada by Showcase. And so I've been watching it the last couple of Wednesdays, and I'm not familiar with the comic book. I did not read it.
No.
I kind of think I know what's going on, but I'm trying to stay in the dark so people don't tweet at me and tell me what it's about, the comic book, because I want to I have suspicions about who these characters are. I think it's a retelling of certain Marvel characters in a different way, and I still am not clued into it, and I think the reveal will be awesome, so I'm trying not to. But it's certainly an interesting story and an interesting characters that I've been watching that consistently over the last few weeks, rather. So there's another great Marvel one. And also the DC, I'll say it while we're on the topic, the DC Arrowverse continues to knock it out of the park. The films are floundering.
Yeah.
Like no one's ever seen before, but the TV, they just finished their Crisis on Earth X crossover this week. Do you remember that?
I just enjoy the Crisis on Earth X
crossover.
The
Crisis is
hard to get your mind around.
The Crisis is not on Earth X. The Earth X is the Earth that has all the Nazis. That's what that is. So it's like the Nazi reality where Hitler won the war, and now they're trying to invade other Earths, and that's the thing. But it was a true crossover. It involved every single hero in the Arrowverse and every single episode also, and they had a major character death, which is a big deal. They haven't done that in a while, so it was a really good crossover. And I'm loving those shows and the Marvel. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comes back this week. And they're in space, apparently. I don't know how that's going to work, but it's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in space.
Wow.
So I'm kind of excited about that. And it's the last season of that show for sure, because they're not going to keep going with that. Fifth season, it'll be the last season for Agents
Is
of
it in
S.H.I.E.L.D.
slow motion because
I
they're
don't know.
in space?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it works out.
hope
It'll be
it
kind
is.
of fun. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Media Nerds Podcast. Go to MediaNerdsPodcast.com for our full podcast, blog, and social media channels.